Hey. Okay, so this is going to be part 6. Yeah. Okay, let's see how this goes. John painted slowly at first. He was very nervous. He painted small fish by the walls surrounding his tiny bathing tub. He made the fish all different colors. Some of them were swimming up, some pointed down. They were all expressionless, but each held a different emotion for John. There were gray fish that meant sadness and mundaneness to John. There were purple fish that communicated freedom and creativity. There were green fish for peace, all different shades of green that somehow reminded John of a forest. So when he finished a school of green fish, he drew roots coming out of them. That started John off. He grew much more loose about the whole thing, started painting yellow, red, and orange fish. He made multicolored fish that darted around the schools of color-coordinated fishes. Soon, John added little seaweed plants and rocks for an environment. He painted blood-red coral and calm blue-green waves that rolled out from the confines of the seascape, escaping quietly around the entire perimeter of John's bathroom. The waves were John's favorite. He finally finished around midnight. He had been painting for nearly 12 hours and was quite tired. He normally went to sleep around 10, so this was a new thing for him. John sort of liked the feeling of being awake when everyone else in his apartment complex was asleep. When John finally laid his head down for sleep at 12:16, it did not come quickly. He lay in his bed for hours, not moving, hearing only his breathing, the slow, ever-present mantra-like pattering of rain on his window interrupted only by the familiar creaks of the apartment complex. John drifted into a strange dream where he was swimming with the fish he'd painted. He was soaring under a vast ocean that should have crushed him had it not been a dream. John looked up and saw the endless ocean stretching above him, tinged a lovely blue-green. The sun barely shot through the miles of clouds. Small schools of colored fish darted and swayed in the ocean. John looked down and saw his town below him. His eyes were attracted over to a park where a man was alone, walking slowly and strangely. He was looking at his feet with strong determination and seemed to be muttering under his breath. His messy black hair had a depth to it that seemed like it was made out of frightening shadows. The edges of it writhed and seethed with a black so deep jet that it made everything else seem light in comparison. The man with the shadow hair seemed to grow taller, taking over the park and John's focus. John drifted over to the man. He flew up so he could look underneath the hair, so he could see the face. John grew pale when he realized it was himself. The taller, shadow-haired Dream John did not seem to notice the miniature of himself hovering uncertainly in his face. Not knowing what to do, John flew over towards the place where his larger doppelganger's path led from. As John zoomed behind his larger dream self, he saw a large gray chain that led from his hands. The chain was long, thick, and heavy-looking. John hated the chain at sight. He had the urge to destroy it. He did not know why. He quelled the impulse and kept up his journey down the path, following the chain. The landscape changed from trees in a park to a burned forest, remains of what was once a living, breathing, wonderful life. The forest was still smoking, choking, ugly black smoke that billowed sluggishly from charred trees, barely sticking up from the blackened earth. The smoke filled John's nose and mouth. His eyes burned. His lungs felt like they were being stretched and pulled apart. John started to scream. He woke up, wrapped tightly in his sheets and sweating heavily. John feverishly clawed at his face, feeling his features and making sure that there was no smoke anywhere around him. When John finally calmed down, he realized it was 7 in the morning. He would be late to his job if he did not hurry, and John had never been late. What did matter to John? John had never been late. Shrugging off the disturbing dream, John untangled his limbs from his sheets and took deep, measured breaths. He would be late, but that was all right. It did not matter if he was late. What did matter was John taking a shower in his new, beautifully mural-covered bathroom. John took a shower, taking his time for once putting in the shampoo, lathering and scrubbing at his shaggy black hair that was in need of a cut. He imagined he was scrubbing out all the shadows and whirling them down the drain. John was clean again. John was safe. John was fine. John was late for the first time in his life. He arrived at the school 2 minutes after the late bell rang. His students were gathered angrily outside the classroom door. John did not pay them any attention. It was halfway through the year, and he didn't know more than 5 of their names. John resolved to learn them soon. He paid no heed, as some of them lazily heckled him for being late. They themselves did not care all that much. John told his class to do bookwork for the entire period. He would not waste time with teaching them things that they were sure to forget within a few hours. The whole day, even in class, John taught. He did not say anything to his students other than telling them the day's assignments. He simply doodled on loose-leaf papers that were lying around, planning things to paint and losing himself to daydreams where he was laughing and having friends. He simply doodled on loose-leaf papers that were lying around, planning things to paint and losing himself to daydreams where he was laughing and having fun with the friends that he did not have. Okay, well, there you go. Tell me things. Say things, yeah? Okay.